Gender mainstreaming. So what is gender mainstreaming? It is an international strategy to achieve gender equality. It integrates a gender perspective in design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs. It is aimed to reduce gender inequality and ensure that the needs of both women and men are equally considered. So when we say gender mainstreaming, it is making sure that both men and women's needs, experiences, and perspective are taken into account in all stages of policies making and program implementation. For example, when creating an agricultural policy, gender mainstreaming would ensure that both men and women, farmers' roles, access to resources, and challenges are considered so that the policy benefits everyone fairly. Key points. Integration into policies, gender mainstreaming requires considering the representation and experience of both men and women in all areas of policies and decision making. Origins. The idea emerged from the UN World Conferences on Women 1985 Nairobi, 1985 Beijing, and has since been adopted by the UN governments and organizations globally. So it helps achieve balanced participation in society. Gender mainstreaming ensures that both women and men are equal opportunities and to participate in social, economic, and political life. This leads to the more exclusive and representative society where everyone's voice matters. Ensures policy are not gender neutral but actively address inequalities. Many policies appear neutral on the surface but many unintentionally favor one gender. Gender mainstreaming requires analyzing how policies affect men and women differently and making adjustments to rise in equality. Importance. Help achieve balanced participation in society. Ensures policies are not gender neutral but actively address inequalities. Strengthen democracy, development, and human rights. Promote shared responsibility in decision making, not just leaving gender issues to human groups. Gender-based analysis or GBA. A tool examines gender differences and how policies affect men and women differently. Essential for planning, monitoring, and evaluating programs to ensure fair outcomes.
Why GBA matters? Example, ang mga polisiya lahi o epekto sa laki o sa bayi. Ang GBA mungutana kung unsaon ini pag-epekto sa duha aron mahimong patas ug epektibo ang polisiya. Gender mainstreaming example. Ang gender mainstreaming magpasabot nga ang tanan mga polisiya dapat magtan-aw sa mga laki o ang bayi. Ang leader o empleyado magtinabangay o muangay sa lokal nga kahimtang. What is the gender equality? Example, ang gender equality pasabot ana patas o katungod oportunidad o gahom sa mga laki o bayi. Baliktaran, kini ang equality o nanginahanglan o kausapan sa kultura, politika, ekonomiya o mga balaod. The problem kay ang gender gihimo sa katalingban pinaagi sa mga papel o roles tungod niini nga mas daghan o gahom ang mga laki o kinahanglan o tinud-anay nga paningkamot aron mausab. Approach is to quality. Example, duha kini ka paagi. Pagkaparehas traditional policy dali nga mosulbad sa mga piho mga problema. Monitoring sagol ang mga pagkaparehas sa tanan ug polisiya kinahanglan nga gamiton ang duha sabay. Constented vision. Lahi-lahi ang mga pagtan-aw sa gender equality. Parehong pagtamod sa tanan. Difference, espesyal sa mga programa para sa uban nga grupo, mga lalaki o mga babae. Usbon ang tanan, aron patas para sa tanan.
Good morning, sir. So I'm a second reporting. My topic is all about Evolution of the mainstreaming strategy. So, at first, during the 1950s and 1960s, the focus was only women's basic needs like health, child care, and education. But this approach was limited because it did not challenge the root cause of inequality. The second is by the 1970s, women's contribution were recognized and the idea of integration was introduced, meaning women were added into development activities. And however, this was often too late in the process and women's voice were not really considered. So, katupod, in the 1980s and 1990s is become clear that this effort were often cosmetic, dissolve symptoms but not the real cause of gender inequality. That's when the mainstreaming strategy emerged. This strategy aimed to put gender equality at the center of all development goals, not just as an add-on. So the need for a broad strategy that targets major institution and focuses on gender relations. So there are five. So first is past effort, small, isolated project. Second is realization, gender inequality is systematic, not solved by marginal programs. Third is needed broad change at policy institution levels. Third, third is is fourth is focus on gender relation, not just women alone. The last is work with men as allies to redefine rules. So the mainstreaming strategy is came because early programs were too narrow. Gender inequality is a system problem, so we need broader broader change, especially in policy and institution. It also means looking at the relationship between men and women, not just focusing on women alone. Important shift and employed in the mainstreaming strategy. So there are also five. So first is from numbers to transformation, not just how many women, but real impact. The second is from women's role to challenging bases in sectors health, agriculture, and water, and etc. Third is from isolated project to national and institutional change. Fourth is from technical issue to political systematic issue. The last is from roles difference to power relationship. So the mainstreaming strategy means shifting the focus. It's not about just counting women. It's about real transformation. It challenges sector basis goes behind project and looks at power relation in society. So mainstreaming, practical implication. So there are six of key elements for success. First is clear goal, gender equality in all processes. Second is consistent approach, not just in some areas but everywhere. The third is make gender issue visible, not hidden. Fourth is start with gender analysis effects on women and men. The, the five is focus on representation plus content, numbers plus substance. The last is use different work tasks as entry points, training, research, policies, and statistic and etc. Six clear steps can be outlined for operationalizing the mainstreaming strategy. So, there are six also. First is identify the gender perspectives of the sector, area, issue, thought for thought. For example, use of gender analysis focusing on both issue of representation and content. Second, second is identify what is required for more actively promoting gender equality in the sector area issue. The third is identify the opportunities existing and different work tasks and additional action which might also need to be taken. The fourth is develop a clear plan of action with objective, activities, and expected outcomes, including indicators for measuring progress. The five is include this plan of action in overall planning documents, medium-term plans, program, budget, and performance evaluation. The last is implement a system for regular and systematic follow-up and recording of results and lesson learned which feeds back into regular planning, programming, and follow-up system. So, in practice, mainstreaming must be clear, consistent, and visible. Gender analysis is the starting point, and it's not just about getting women into the room but making sure content is gender sensitive. Every work task like training, policy making, or data collection is an opportunity to include gender perspective. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariela de la Peña Perel. I'm a reporter of Group 2. So my topic is the gender inequality citizenship. So first is what is citizenship? The status of being a citizenship granted individual specific rights and responsibility by the state. Civil rights, individual freedom such as the right of fair trial, freedom of speech, and the right to own property. Public right, the right of vote and run for a political office. Social right, the right of economic welfare, security to access the public service like education and health care. The gender nature of the citizenship. Citizenship historically defined by the male-centric norms often feels granted women and the same right of an opportunity as a man. The public property private divide. The traditional view and men belong to the public sphere, politics, economic, and women belong in the private sphere, home, family, and the historical included women from full citizenship. Then, the problem. The divide continues from the frame women contribute in the home as a private obligation rather than the public economic work and impact the assess of social right and economic power. Unpaid and unequal rights and legal discrimination. So, throughout history and even today, many laws effective bases such as do governing property and marital rights. Family law. Women are often treated on inequality in a family laws regarding marriage, divorce, and a child custody, violating human rights. Citizenship transmission. The gender pay gap and economic inequality. Unequal to pay from equal work. Global. Women earn significantly less than for comparable work. Sequence. The pay gap affected women's economic security, social right, and ability to participate unequal to society. Intersectionality. The pay gap and often weight for a women color, highlighting how to multiple forms to oppression intersect and exhibit inequality. Political underrepresentation. Barrier participation and the basis create significant holders for the women seeking politics office. Lack of representation. This effect of female politics leaders meant the policies often fail fully address unique need and concern women. Global Goal 5. The UN Sustainable Development Goals and the arms to ensure women and fully effective participation to equal opportunity for leadership. Then unpaid care and domestic work. A phenomenon role culture norms significantly sign for the bulk unpaid care domestic labor to women, limiting for the time of opportunity for the other pursuits. Economic impact. The unpaid work are largely recognized by the formal economic system and yet essential for the functioning of society. And case study global initiative. Spotlight initiative, a multiple-year AU-UN partnership focused on the eliminating of the form of violence against women and girls. The Magna Carta and Women Philippines. This law recognizes and the right of women to express specificity address the need of vulnerable sector and the like indigenous women. Moving forward toward gender equal citizenship. So, policy intervention. Strategy like gender mainstreaming, gender budgeting can ensure that policies address gender and difference. Strengthening legal protection. Eliminating discriminatory laws and enforcing legal rights and the critical from the enhanced equality. Challenging norms. Education, the public discourse essential from the challenging the play and encourage social expectation about gender roles and citizenship. And the last is conclusion. Recap: gender inequality and citizenship manifest through unequal laws, economic dissipate, and underrepresentation. Central main message: achieving full unequal citizenship of the people requires recognizing and dismantling and gender basis embedded in our legal, social, and political system. And last is the call of action: eradicating prejudice and promoting equal rights is just a human right. So that's all my report, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jan Diocon. I'm reporter of sexual subjugation and female infanticide. Sexual subjugation is historically women have viewed their property and limiting their freedom to obedience to the male authority. Ang kasabutan ni sa sexual subjugation is mao ni ang pag-control sa bae sa ilang freedom. Tapos female infanticide. Female infanticide is mao ni ang practices of killing female babies at birth is included in the preference for male children. Mao ni ang pagkuhan sa female infanticide is mas prefer sila sa mga laki na mga bata kaysa mga bae to lead the imbalancing and is a stark reflection of deep-seated discrimination against women. Next is nature versus nurture, understanding gender difference. Some say sa atoa, ang kalainan daw sa lakaw bae is ang kusog o makabuo na ay give birth sa kwan. Ang sa laki is mao nang kusog. Ang sa bae pod is mao ni ang ability to give birth. Next is how society shape gender roles. Ang one is childhood expectation, mao nang kuan sa laki, ang kailangan sa bata pang mga laki is talagang sila mga duwa na mga truck like toys and sa bae po is mga tagaan sila mga ang mga bae bata tagaan sila mga dolls and tapos encourage nurturing and domestic roles. Sa reinforced stereotype is reinforcing stereotype is mao ni ang limiting their potential. Example is tuduan nila ang isa ka bata para sa kanang expectation nila expected to become kuan gusto nila kana ipakuan biskan dili ganan sa bata. Next is pervasive form of gender inequality. Unequal pay. There are 4 types of forms of gender inequality. Unequal pay, leadership gap, and limited job opportunities, and unequal domestic burden. Ang unequal pay is despite performing the same work, women frequently earn less than men, contributing to the persistent gender pay gap. Mao ni ang biskan pareha sila kahago sa isa ka lalaki ug bae, mas dako pa ang sweldo daw sa mga lalaki kaysa bae. Ang leadership gap is there are significantly fewer women in the leadership positions across all sectors from corporate boards to political office. Mao ni ang mas daghan daw ang mga laki na leadership kaysa mga bae sa sina, sa across all section ning sabi ka na sa mga kita kasagaran dito ang mga leader dito is mga laki. Ang limited job opportunities mo ang mas daghan ang mas nakalimitado daw ang sa mga bae na mga job opportunities kay tungod ang mas prefer sila sa mga laki na kuan kay women often face barriers to accessing certain professions or advancing into higher payment growth, limiting career growth. Unequal domestic burden. Social expectations often place the primary responsibility for household work and children on women, even when they are also employed. Gender inequality, a global perspective. Unpaid labor burden in many countries, women spend significantly more time on unpaid care work and domestic chores compared to men, impacting their economic independence. Leaderships and underrepresentations despite progress, very few women have ascended to the highest level of national leadership or corporate executive roles, demonstrating clear barriers to political and economic power. Ang leadership daw is mao daw ni ang under representation respect sa kakuan daw sa atong kuan sa mga corporation parang sa ka ay mas gamay mas nakalimitado raw mas gamay na daw ang mga bae na higher positions sa mga corporations. Education gap and foundation for disadvantage. One is disparate in schooling. In some areas, girls are less likely to complete their schooling than boys, often due to the cultural norms of poverty or lack of resources. Two is unequal investment. Families might be prioritize investing in boys and education over girls, believing it yields a greater returns or is more cultural appropriate. Ang unequal investment daw is mo daw ni ang kuan mas mo invest pa daw sila sa mga laki kaysa mga bae kay mas dako daw ang mabalik kaysa sa bae. Ang limited opportunities. This education gap severely limits job opportunities for women later in life, hindering their economics, empowerment, and overall societal contribution. Violence, discrimination, and well-being. Sa violence, discrimination, and well-being, natay tulong kuan klase. Harassment and violence, women mao ni ang harassment and violence mao ni ang ang bae daw pirmi daw harason sa balay ba, sa public spaces, sa workplace o mao nang limiting the freedom of the and security. Ang cultural restriction is in some cultures which traditionally practice and norms impose serve limitation on women's freedom, movement, and autonomy. Impact on well-being. Such unequal treatment negatively impacts women's physical and mental health, reducing their overall equality of life and social participation. Why gender equality matters? First, fairness, growth, and respect. Ang kining tulo mo ni ang respect, treating every individual with dignity, while weighing their contributions irrespective of gender. Growth, unblocking humans' potentials, boosting economies, and fostering innovations for national development. Fairness, ensuring everyone has equal opportunities to thrive and succeed free from discriminations. Ang respect is mo nang pag-respeto nato sa one dili nato sila harason, one pa sa ang growth mo ni ang i-unlock na to ang mga potential bisan babae, malaki or bisan sa mga diha mga transgender. Furnace mo ni ang mga furnace mo nang pag dili na to dili ta mo dapig sa laki kaysa bae. Ang pan is mas dapigan na to kung kinsay atong mas gana ang kuan. Thank you, Maroto.